Hey, everybody. Welcome back to The Collective. We have another awesome show for you planned out today. It's going to be all about cool stuff like A teams and assets and all tactical kind of stuff. And
Ooh.
while I'm talking about that, you should be hitting the like button. You should be subscribing. You should be hitting the notification bell. You should be doing all that good stuff. Now, Shaun, you want to give us a brief overview? What is an A team? What does it do? Why do we need assets? All that good stuff. Break it down for us.
Well, I will, but first I just want to comment on the intro, the new opening that we've got. I kind of like it. It's almost like soothing in a sense.
Just kind of seamless. Just
It's just kind of seamless.
bang.
It just seems like there's no real. It's not that there was a disconnect prior, but I just kind of like the way it comes in now. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
What do you
I've
think?
been. I kind of like the intro. It gives me like a second to like, and then go at it. But
Yeah, I don't need that.
you don't need that now. That
No,
makes
I'm
sense.
I'm always for my entire life just ready to go.
Ready to go. Fully inhale. He's ready to go. There's Jason. How's it going,
Hey,
buddy?
Jay.
How's
Hey,
the
I'm
audio?
sorry, guys.
It's all good.
No need to be sorry. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
So
too. How are you guys?
we are talking A teams and assets, and I was just going to give Shaun a chance to give us a blurb while I
Yeah.
shoot an email over to Rough and Rise.
Sounds good. So this conversation kind of came about because Jay had shot us a message on IG in respect to how to maybe increase the footprint of what we're trying to be doing over here on the collective, how we can maybe get some, I'll say it for lack of a better term, some subsidiaries or some franchisees within the franchise model, if anyone wants to think of it that way. And so I'm going to now hop in the hot tub time machine and go back almost to November. And after the Remembrance Day initiative that was kicking out at that time, if anyone recalls that, it seems so long ago.
Mm-hmm.
When that was done, I was like, okay, got to do more, got to do better, got to do bigger, et cetera, et cetera. So started talking with some people, and then Chance and I put our heads together. And at that time, we didn't have a name called The Collective. We didn't have a plan called, well, we still don't have a plan, but we just decided that we wanted to do more. And I already had in my mind how I was going to do it at a strategic level. I just didn't have the tactical wherewithal to be able to uh, deeply describe my intentions. But my overarching theme was this. I know that amongst a handful of us, we could get something going. And then once it became a rhythm, then I or we could start building it out into the I or we plan that I had in my head back in November. And that again is create little A teams. And an A team is like a Green Beret reference from the US Special Operations. And A teams are small subunits, usually 12 man. It could be any size. It doesn't matter in this respect, but a small subunit that is self-contained, that can improvise, adapt, and overcome, is used to some adversity, can be very fluid in volatile situations, and be reactive in the now. And so, because of their small size and because of their more three-dimensional abilities within each team, they can deal with anything, anywhere in the world, nearly any subject.
Mm-hmm.
And that really takes a lot of cross training, or a lot of wherewithal, or a lot of non-one-dimensional but three-dimensional individuals to create an A team. And so this idea of trying to take podcasting and positive messaging and leadership by example and demonstrating how things can be done better, talking about how things can be done better, having people come in and talk about how things can be done better, how they're demonstrating betterment within their lives and wellness within their lives. We're now at that point where we've created enough critical mass, I feel, that we can go bigger. And so again, back to Jay, had come in with the idea that of course, Jay wants to help any way that he can. He wants to be not just part of the team, but he wants the team to keep pushing forward through his own energy, his own thoughts, his own actions. And I'm a huge fan, as I've I've been a fan of what Jay's doing right from the get-go. I do my best to push his messaging out into the intergalactic sphere because we vibe. We're on the same wavelength. We see eye to eye on a lot of things. And I just like the positive messaging. I just like that Jay is being helpful to everyone that I know who is involved in the collective. And so Jay had proposed, how can I help more? And I said, well, we can talk about it in a podcast real soon so that we can help others understand what we're trying to do at a higher level order or at an overarching theme level, and help people understand that it isn't just Chance and I that want to run this whole thing by ourselves. We don't want to run it with semi-regular guests either. We want everyone to, or I want everyone to feel, I'm speaking for Chance, but I believe we want everyone to feel like they're in the game with us 100% and standing side by side with us rather than working for us, or hey, do you think we could get a, do you think you could just, I don't want any of that. I want everyone to feel like they're on the A team, and I want all the A teams out there, like, I'm going to call them out right now, Ruck and Rice podcast being a perfect example, bam, of that. And yeah, I get to run my own intergalactic sphere. Almost synchronized that perfectly, by the way. Ruck and Rice podcast is a perfect example of what I'm trying to do, what we're trying to do, creating small A teams out there, whether they know it or not, whether they're aware of that's what we're trying to do, or whether they are organically creating their own A team. And by little A teams, I mean just if it's one person or two people, that's little compared to 1,000 people, but that has nothing to do with their impact. One person can impact just as much as 1,000,000 people in front of a microphone with the right words, the right tone, the right messaging. And that's what we're trying to do here on the collective. But if it was a second cup, because I was a second cup owner at one point, part of a franchisee model, then I would be the franchisor and everyone else would be franchisees. And then those franchisees would be paying the collective a small fee to be a subsidiary or affiliated with the badging of the collective. Chance and I talked about that before we kicked this whole thing off on January 1, because we knew there was going to be costs. And by the way, no one's raining money on us yet. Chance, hang on a sec.
Should I check the funds? Let me just
check the funds. Oh yeah, we're still broke.
Yeah, nothing.
So we haven't monetized this at all, but we did talk about how to monetize it in the future. Because again, I've got grand plans, and they're much larger than just Chance and I. And in order to do that, it's got to be capitalized. Say again.
And I'm already pretty big, so
you are a big deal. I'm just trying to keep up to you, buddy. So in order to capitalize something like this to the degree that I want to create a fairly massive footprint, it's going to require some institutional support. It's going to require some sponsor stuff and all of that good stuff. But before any of that was going to happen, I said to Chance, maybe we need to go to a franchisee model or some such thing where we are an overarching umbrella, that not that we have people working for us, that's so wrong, but where we have people working with us, like-minded, and then we can support all of the A teams out there in a way that is supportive rather than simply trying to claw something out of all those little A teams out there. Everyone knows my deal. I'm just trying to raise all boats around us. And everyone else also knows my deal is it's got to be positive, forward trajectory for everyone with actionable items that they can sink their teeth into and understand how they can do better in life. So A teams across the country, A teams across the world, A teams across the entire intergalactic space, I'd be a huge fan. And so that's the overarching theme of what I'd like to talk about today in respect to A teams. Now, assets, as I've said to Chance, recently as yesterday or last week or whenever, pick a day. And it's along these lines, dude, we can't do it all. You can't do it all. I can't do it all. We're too busy. We need help. And so I said, look, we got to get some assets. And those assets are our friends. And those friends have skills. And those skills are what we need And by the way, some people owe me favors. Let's start calling those in. And that's where we're at right now with trying to not use our assets, but trying to correctly employ our assets. We're trying to not use A teams. We're trying to correctly identify and work with A teams so that as a team, a large team, we can do better this week and next week, etc.
Yeah, that is. You summed everything up. I don't really need to add anything in there, but
I gave it no thought, so
Okay.
I was just rambling. So I'm sure that
Nailed it.
there's more that could be added.
for sure. Now, sorry, Rock and Rice podcast. I don't actually know your first name.
Oh, I'm Allie.
Allie. Okay, well, Allie, why don't you hit us up with what Rock and Rice podcast is and
Okay.
what it's going to be, and then Jason will give you a chance, and then we'll get into how we're all going to work together, kind of deal.
Sounds good. I might have to go because I have an appointment, but I'll
For sure.
try to stay on for as long as possible. So what we're trying to do is just create a platform where we talk about mental health, suicide prevention, all that sort of thing, and a community where it's okay and safe to talk about all that hard stuff. And how do we rise each other up out of our comfort zones to become better, learn more about ourselves, and gain new friendships and that sort of thing, with a long-term goal of hopefully getting some sponsors on board where we could, put some funds into really good causes like Wounded Warriors Canada and stuff like that. So we're very new. We're just learning. We've only recorded 2 episodes, only one's out so far. So we're sort of just, we're babies in the podcasting world, but Dave and I are a team, and we're doing it together with one of our friends as our editing kind of tech person. So that's
awesome.
a very quick overview.
That's awesome. More of what we need. What do you got,
And I wouldn't mind throwing this in. This is the beautiful part about A teams, is A teams are responsive. So Rock and Rise podcast came into this podcast with that much notice. Actually, during my live IG chat, in the last 30 seconds of it, we organized this.
I think it was
But
like
that's
15 minutes
important.
ago.
That is important because an A team is responsive. An institution is not. So if I would have said, hey, listen, Canadian Armed Forces Transition Group or whoever, can you be in this podcast 45 seconds from now? Well, I've got to go up the chain of command and I've got to mail in some letters and I need some signatures and see you later. You're not in the game. But if you're in the game of trying to change things rapidly, which is what we desperately need, we need people who are responsive. So, Allie, thanks for being responsive.
Yeah, thanks for the quick invite.
Absolutely. Jay, what are your thoughts on A teams and how we got this conversation started?
Yeah, well, the conversation, the reason why I reached out and said that was because I had to dump this imposter syndrome problem that I had when I first met you guys, because I was always looking for something similar to this. And I see that this is something that is heavily needed. And we all know this, right? So in the law enforcement world, there's just not a lot of places that you can go where you would get, like Shaun just said, a quick reaction or a response that is immediate. So a person is suicidal, for example. You're not going to go to your association, or you're not going to get in with a psychologist or your family doctor right away. But you could have like this idea of A teams. If you were able to expand the collective so that there were pockets of teams all around. This is just one example of what could be. If there were pockets of people all around and all of us were prepared and had the resources available to help men and women in law enforcement or military or wherever that were looking for or needed immediate help, that's the kind of person that could be set up for that. And then also, interestingly, I don't see in the podcast sphere or on social media a whole lot of collaboration going on. What I see is everybody trying to get their own dollar, or everybody trying to get as many likes or followers as they can, but there's no real genuine, I shouldn't say there's none. I see a lack of authentic people out there actually trying to help. You know, they're trying to help themselves and their bankroll more than they seem to be actually interested in public or putting themselves out there to be not an influencer, but an inspirer, somebody who, am I coming in twangy, Shaun?
He's good. You keep going. I think he's talking to somebody inside.
Okay.
You're muted there, Shaun, but go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, and so I don't see that very often. And the term collective is something, and I know the two of you know because you've watched my social media and you see the things I write. I'm all about that. I've always thought that we collect information from one another. We share in our experience when we interact with people, and so the collective to me, as an evolution thing, can't just be two people. It has to be way more than that. And I feel like as I've watched over the last several months since the three of us met and have been interacting, I've watched various groups kind of folding in and becoming like a communication branch where I have been introduced to people I've never met before that I never would. I have seen big names in social media spaces and tiny little names in like the sports space coming together as a team, setting aside their hierarchical differences and just having great conversations to move the needle forward for anybody that's interested and anybody that's listening. And so when I reached out and said, "Hey, what about this? What about a partnership or a branching or and then Shaun used the word A team, which I think is fantastic. That's what my thought was. What about the two of you using external assets as a way to promote the message that the collective has? And I think when you look at the word or the idea of what an A team is, it literally is that, right? You get a group of individuals that have that come with their own strengths, their own expertise, their own experience, their own wisdom, but they all share a common goal. And in that way, you just keep expanding outwards and bringing more people in and helping more people. And I've heard the two of you say on many occasions that that's what the main goal is. And so I was very attracted to the collective because I'm that kind of guy as well. I'm not in this for thumbs ups and hearts and likes on Facebook. I'm not in this to become a millionaire. I'm in this because I've been harmed personally. I've undergone all kinds of my own personal stress and trauma. And now that I'm getting better, I just want people to not experience what I've experienced, or at least have me as a resource to look towards for help. And I saw that in you guys. I saw that the two of you seem to be very authentic and genuine individuals who are using your wisdom and your assets and your strengths from your lifetime of experience to reach out and help people. And at no time have I ever thought that you're doing it for popularity or for the wrong reason. And so, you know, for me, that's highly attractive because I have not been that kind of person. I've always been a bit of a lone wolf. Social media to me is brand new. I've only been on it for a year, maybe a year and a half. And I was not looking for an empty vessel. I was looking for something that had real depth of character. So when I came across this, it was like, man, that's the kind of thing that I want. That's the thing that everybody's looking for, is real people in real time doing things now, not with bureaucracy, not with red tape, not with political influence, but just real people coming together, gathering all of their assets, whether they're physical or mental, and then trying to help people and trying to make people better and raising people up, no matter where you are on that scale. You know, like, we all have different levels of experience, and it doesn't seem to matter with you guys, which is so awesome. You know, you bring a guy on who has 1 million followers on your team and you treat him like me. You know, and that's a real noble thing, and it's really attractive to people, and you can see that. Both of you know. I have a lot of friends who follow you guys. I've met all kinds of acquaintances online, and I think they all kind of share in this same thing, this idea that a collective of individuals that are like-minded can do way more than one powerful person with a giant platform. And I think that that's absolutely real, and it's true.
I think
that's
what
sparked it for me.
Yeah, I think there's a little piece there that I think we utilize this a little bit too much, is like-minded people, because like-minded people can end up being an echo chamber. And it's something that I think we do need to realize, is that it takes all people, takes all kinds, takes all thoughts, takes all, like, we need all of the in order to do something truly. If we want to change the world, right? If we want to make the world a better place, we got to be listening to everybody. We got to be actually hearing what everybody has to say, because otherwise we're just dismissing a large chunk of the population, and we can't.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. So it's just something that, you know, like-minded is one thing, but like acting, or I guess is more along the lines, I think what we're trying to get is the people that actually do.
Yep.
Is who it's so nice to be around. It's one of those things that I think a lot of people miss when they leave the military or the police or any type of organized organization like that, where we're all pulling together, that kind of deal.
Yeah, agreed. And, you know, like, that's just another way that you can look at the term, the collective. You know, it's
Yeah.
not just a collection of people, but it's a collection of their life's experience, their wisdom, you know. And so, yeah, it's I think that diversity of people that you have folded, that the two of you have been able to fold into your program, into this awesome, I don't know if you want to call it an experiment, but whatever this is, whatever you guys are working on, it's natural, and you are literally doing that. And I think that's another bonus, that when people on the outside are looking in, they're seeing that in someone, right? It may not be that they connect with Chance Burles or Sean Taylor, but they might connect with somebody else who is a regular voice or a face or somebody seen within the collective, and they'll take a little snip of that because they connect with that individual. And so the more people, Chance, like that, the more people that have that are within the sphere of the collective, the more options other people have to see something that will be motivational or inspiring to them, right? I'm not everybody's cup of tea. And so if you had a multitude of people in association with the collective, then you've got a codex for almost everybody who is looking for that thing that will inspire them to move forward in the right direction. And it doesn't need to be that. When I said like-minded, that's, you know, that's wording that we didn't really like hash out what it means. But like-minded is more what you said, Chance, and I agree with you completely. Not necessarily like-minded because we're all like the Borg, you know, where we're all just falling in lockstep with whoever is, you know, quoting the right thing for that day, but literally like-minded in that we all want to move forward. We all want to help people. We're all looking to better our lives and to work on self-mastery right until our last breath. And the people that I have seen that have joined the collective, that have been brought in, that's the thing that drives them. They don't need to like the same things as me or you. They can have completely different lifestyles, but they're on the exact same trajectory. And so they share in a very similar ethos, or a very similar zeitgeist, right? That you have this own little microcosm called the collective, that's just bringing in people by a natural gravitational force, because I think it's so, well, the word I used is natural. It seems so natural, right? It seems so bootstrapped. Like you just started it and people came in because they were attracted to it. And now it's growing and everyone's like, yeah, man, I like that. And it's because I just don't see this very often. There's all kinds of people out there that I watch their podcasts, and I love podcasts, but it's all individuals, right? And none of them have ever come together to have what, like you've got a QRF in Alberta, and then you've got an asset in Quebec and Ontario, and you've got all these people all over North America, even potentially, that are all working to the same goal that could help individuals right now. You know, Sean gives me a call one day. Hey, this guy reached out to me. He lives in Kenora, Ontario, and you're within that zone. Help him out. Okay, got it. Boom, done. What are you going to do in BC when I'm 2 hours away, right? And I know I'm kind of like rambling, but I just see this as an awesome opportunity because I've been thinking about this. This is the thing that people need and want. You know, they want a response. They don't want bureaucracy and politics. They don't want baloney. They want truth. They want authenticity, and they want real world wisdom. And I think that's what the collective is real world wisdom coming together.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Sean, you got any thoughts?
I do. So one of the things that frustrated me right from the get-go was I was trying to get involved with institutions. And I'm just going to say it. You all suck. You're irresponsive. You don't respond. And if you do respond, it is not in a timely fashion. It is too late. When I say, could you please? And if you say, how about tomorrow or a week from now? Or can you send in the form? Can you blah, blah, blah? Too late. The kind of things that we're dealing with over here is people need answers now. They need responsiveness now. They need to feel like they're being looked after now. Not take a number and we'll get back to you next month. That is so uncool. And so that's why we're doing this. Like Chance Burl says, none of us here are doctors. But sadly, the doctors that we need to be responsive are not responsive. Sadly, the things that should be speaking in front of a microphone in a timely fashion are not speaking in front of a microphone in a timely fashion. All the answers that people require that I know are not getting those answers in the time required to solve the problem. Time.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop for any man. And I've said this before in my old IG account when I was struggling with it because of all kinds of, I was just getting bombarded with so many requests for help that it kind of borked up my old IG account. And I said to Seb Lavoie, I'm bouncing. I'm starting a new account ASAP. Well, why? Just wait out. No, I'm not going to wait 24 hours for Instagram to sort out my old account, because there's people who are like in the wings right now trying to contact me and I can't help them. I'll never let anyone down if they contact me and say, bro, I'm struggling so hard right now. I might not be here at the end of the day. That is unacceptable to me. No one's response should be, I understand, but take a number. That's what I'm seeing out there right now with all of the large institutions, to include the Canadian Armed Forces, to include the institutions that are supposed to be supporting us right now through Veterans Affairs Canada and et cetera. All of the various subsidiaries that are on the clock 9 to 5. What happens after 5 o'clock in the evening? What happens? Nothing.
Yeah, you're not allowed.
We'll see you tomorrow at 9. Then take a number.
Yeah.
I'm not into it. It is so uncool. And I'm not talking about the emergency hotlines. It's a completely different thing. I'm talking about someone showing enough care at an institutional level that they realize that there are solutions happening ASAP. And with none of that in place, that's why we created this. And we need help. We do need help. And if those institutions aren't going to help us, then we're going to create our own institution called A-Teams.
Yeah.
Well, then why not, right? You know, like if you're trying to get the word out, if you're trying to help people, you need a couple of things. Like you need marketing, advertisement, and you need proof of concept at least. So people need to be able to come in and see they're actually doing the thing without any bureaucracy whatsoever, right? They're talking about amazing things. The podcast is breaking down and explaining the wisdom of real world problems. And there's people out there, and all of us, I include myself in the collective. So sorry.
You are, buddy.
But
one of us,
all of us out there that are sharing in Instagram, we're sharing the things that we're doing, not just the words we say. And I started to do that to try and use the old analogy that actions speak louder than words. It's really cool for me to go and write neat paragraphs and sentences and poems and talk about my thing. But if I'm also not doing, nobody's going to trust that I have the capability to actually help, right? Because words are awesome, but that doesn't matter. Words are meaningless unless there's action. So one of the awesome things about people that are folding into the collective is that they have the proof of concept. They're out there. They're like, listen, I just went and did this. I have the physical capabilities. And so when I see that you're sharing that, that's one of the things that I think is important for the collective is marketing and advertising and proof of concept, that people are actually looking at the members of the collective that are out here now that are part of this. They're seeing the actual real work they're able to do. So you're actually proving your worth, because you can sit back and listen to a really popular podcaster talking all day long about the psychology of the human mind, but they've never lived or experienced human suffering themselves. So they don't have the proof of concept. They don't necessarily have the historical background to say that they're doing the thing that they claim to be wise on. I wouldn't necessarily trust a person who's claiming to have all the wisdom of the world if they've never experienced any kind of form of suffering or trauma, or have never really volunteered themselves into a difficult situation. And so that's what another thing that I think is an asset for the collective is you've got a whole whack of individuals here that have these resumes, these deep resumes to prove their worth, to prove that they can be a leader, that they have a diverse skill set, that they are resourceful, and that they've overcome incredible adversity to become the person that they are now. And I think that's that proof of concept thing that I've been thinking about is something when I look upon the collective, I see individuals who have a resume and it's proven through their social media. And then when you get to know them more on an individual level, you see that the concept is actually what they live. They actually live this day to day. It's not just a part-time thing. You know, when they turn on the camera, they're an influencer, or I know you don't like that word. They're inspiring.
It works though.
Well, you know, your episode a couple of days ago about influence versus inspiration is the inspirer, I think, is far greater than the influencer. I was agreeing with most of the things, and we all have heard the word influencer so much it rolls off the tongue before you realize what you're saying, right? But there's people within this group that are inspiring, and they're showing proof of concept, and that's what people need to see. It's fine to see somebody standing in front of a camera saying all kinds of awesome things, but if that person doesn't prove their worth, what are their words worth?
It's very true. There's another side to this that I wanted to hit, but I also have some comments here. Shaun, you got any thoughts?
No, go ahead, buddy.
Okay. So I was just thinking that there's also the side of this that it's great to also see people who are living the life, so to speak. You know, the David Goggins, the Jockos, all the people who are doing all the things that they say that you should do. But there's also, it's almost like there's such a separation between that and the average human being that it becomes almost a barrier to entry, if you know what I mean. Like, right, you're like, oh, I could never get there because you don't see the middle ground, so to speak. And I think one of the other parts that I really enjoy about the collective is the fact that when we have people from all kinds of backgrounds, you get to see you get to see those different stages. You get to see those different spots of all along the linear trajectory of awesomeness. And you can see that, you can be awesome without having to be David Goggins, or you can be awesome without having to be Jocko. You can just continue to work to be awesome, and you will be awesome, if that makes any sense. And Shaun said it to me a number of times that I'm the stand-in for the everyman, right? And the amount of growth I've had.
Am I wrong? I mean,
no,
I don't think I'm wrong.
No, you're absolutely right.
But what's interesting is you're not the average man anymore.
Yep. Yeah, that's kind of what I was going with, the fact that you get to see the growth within the 6 months that there has been from day one to now. It's crazy.
And I'll push back a touch on putting out those names. And I know in the spirit of things, you're choosing the right names: David Goggins, Jocko, etc. They come with a certain sense of, oh, I know who that is, and oh, I know what he's done, and oh, I know why he's like that. They're good to almost caricatures. I'm not calling them caricatures, but I mean, they're awesome dudes, etc.
Yeah,
I'm never going to throw them under the bus, but they're good representatives for everyone to nod their head and say, oh yeah, I know what we're talking about right now.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, there's no difference between Goggins and me in my mind.
No,
he's just another dude. Same with Jocko, just another dude. I'm not suggesting that all the things that they have done are normal or average, or they're just another dude. I'm just saying that I just look at them. I look at them as just another dude who's done a lot of amazing things, but they are not out of reach. I mean, if I'd have put my mind to running, I'd be looking over my shoulder telling Goggins to pick up the pace for reals. And so these are just choices that we make in life. The important distinction is it's how you run your life. No pun intended. If you put yourself into the game of becoming awesome at something, well, pursue and become awesome. Become the Goggins in macrame if that's what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more about a mindset and more about the understanding that you're pursuing betterment, rather than just Groundhog Day grinding your way through another decade of what did I do this decade? Mm-hmm. So I think that the Gogginses and the Jockos of the world are good. We'll call them high water marks or milestones that someone can pursue towards. Mm-hmm. But I don't look at those guys. I'm going to talk the same talk that Tony talked yesterday about influencers and inspirers, and not putting people up on a podium too much,
Mhm.
not putting them up on a pedestal too much, not putting your heroes up to heroic levels too much, because they're just dudes
Mhm.
doing stuff. And it's notable because they've been doing it for long enough that everyone recognizes them for it.
That's good clarification. I appreciate that. That actually makes a lot more.
By the way, do you remember when Jocko first started podcasting?
I don't.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't
Yeah.
great. He's way different now than he was back then. That's the way things go, man. Like, he pulled the trigger
Yeah.
and got to work. And by the way, I don't think he worked as hard as we've been working, because he was kind of like every week sort of thing. You know what I mean? Let's do a podcast here. Let's do let's give this thing a try. I mean, from day one, we just kicked it in the teeth every day. It doesn't mean that we're doing it better. It just
Yeah.
means that we're doing it with more velocity.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And it's actually interesting because I didn't start listening to Jocko until like 2 years in. So he had done a number. So, but I went back to number one and I started from number one and went forward. Still haven't caught up yet. Working on it. It's going to take a while. Any other thoughts before I jump onto some of these comments?
Yeah, you guys are both kind of talking about like scale and hierarchy when it comes to looking at people that are maybe within the collective or people that are inspirational to you. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what I think anyways. And it's kind of like the old analogy of firing an arrow at a target. So if your target is at ground level in front of you and you pull back and you draw and you fire, the arrow is going to go, and at some point it's going to lose its velocity and hit the ground. Now, if you aim at something much higher, pull back and fire your arrow, the arrow is going to not necessarily hit that target, but it's going to fly farther than it did if you were aiming lower, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to go farther. So, you know, Chance, you and I might be sort of like the everyday Joe part of the collective, that we're working to become much greater than we have been. And
Mhm.
Shaun, with your elite experience, you'd be perhaps you'd be a much higher target to aim an arrow at in order to fire yourself farther than if you were aiming at Chance and I. And I'm using this as a hypothetical, but
Yeah.
there's thousands of eyeballs on people in the collective. And not everybody's going to be interested in being a world champion cyclist, right? Not everybody's going to fire their arrow at Jocko Willink and want to be Jocko. But if they at least are inspired by him, they're not going to be firing their arrow down at the ground at the everyday Joe's foot, right? It's going to help them springboard farther when there are some individuals within the group that are more elite. It's just natural. People are going to strive for that. They may not achieve that level, but they're at least going to be able to strive for that, because it's allowing them to aim way higher than if they had no good target in front of them.
Yeah, and I don't even care if someone hits a target. All I care is that they pick up the bow and arrow.
Yeah,
and start trying to figure out how to use it, you know?
Yeah, and just fire.
Does the pointy end go on the string, or does the knock end go on the string?
Yeah.
Now I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
Pick up a bow, pick up an arrow, and think about where you want to fire it. Do you want to fire it into your foot? No. Do you want to fire it 10 feet in front of you? No. Do you want to shoot it up and straight up in the air and see if it lands on your silly head? No. Pick up a bow, pick up an arrow, and figure out what you want to do with that arrow. How far do you want to shoot it? What do you want to shoot it at? How hard do you want to pull that drawstring? Do you just pull it far enough to say, oh, that's a lot of work. Okay, I'm going to try it again tomorrow. See how much further I can pull it. I don't care. Pick up the bow, pick up the arrow, get to work figuring out what you want to do with it, how far you want to shoot it, and at what. That makes me happy.
There's a great allegory in the fact that the bow becomes, as you start to use it, it becomes an asset to you. Right. Yeah. And that's the benefit, is that you learn a new skill, but not on top of that, as the collective, there's a direct allegory into what we're talking about, which is, you know, utilization of A teams. And this is us, again, we're picking up the bow and we're just starting launching stuff. I'm like, hey, well, let's go work on that. All right, cool. Now we'll work on those people. And like, there's this development that becomes a continual cycle of development. We just keep getting better, to keep exchanging with other people, and we keep getting rising. It's I'm loving it.
I will say this on the bow and arrow, just because it was brought up. I do like using analogies.
I like
They're fun to me.
the king of
Doxy accused me
analogies, I
of being
think.
the king of analogies.
I
It's
don't
not
use
that
analogies ever.
I don't come up with good ones, but I do like to play with them. The other thing about a bow and arrow is if you're new to the game, when you pick up a bow and you pick up an arrow, it all feels really awkward. And then maybe 1,000 arrows downrange, you're feeling pretty good about yourself. But if you've been in the game of assets long enough, or if you've been in the game of understanding how to work the world around you to some degree long enough, the bow just disappears. It's in your hand, but you don't feel it. The arrow is going down range and you don't know how it happened. You just looked at something and thought that's done, and it lands in the center. That's just time on target. That's just time holding a bow. That's just time understanding what you're doing. Eventually, the thing that feels unusual in your hand just disappears.
I tell my boys this all the time. Everything is hard until you do it enough times that it's easy.
Yeah.
I think it took me a while to actually start employing that myself, but it is it's something I've always said. Now, any other thoughts before we carry on? I got a couple.
Hit the
Jason,
comments,
good?
buddy.
Okay.
Yeah, never.
So Daniel, first off, afternoon. Good to see you, Daniel. Chris K says, any data you need, I can bring up in minutes. Like 40% of watch hours are Canada and US combined. Good to know. We will definitely hit you up soon, Chris, for sure. KH says, so what about silent partners? Ooh, silent partners. That's a good question. So we were talking about this.
What do you mean by silent partners, though?
And this is where I was going to get at it, is that there are going to be people that want to be involved without really having to do anything. At least
So what is that?
That's
not a partner.
Exactly. That's what I was going to go at.
That's a doormat.
Yeah. Well,
that's standing on the sidelines and watching the world go by is what I see as a
That's
silent
spectating,
partner.
I think, isn't it?
Yeah, spectator.
Yeah. Spectating. There you go. And then he goes.
But maybe he had. So before we can. Maybe
Yeah.
he's going to get into it. But maybe he has a different interpretation of what a silent partner is. I don't know. But I read that and I think spectator, not in the game.
That's what
I'm not saying KH is not in the game. I'm just saying as that's written, that's a spectator.
That was my assumption of it as well. But
okay.
And he does say, I agree with Jason, genuine people here at the collective. Well, I appreciate that. Salty Jinx says, take the POB, Jason. You've been an amazing leader and inspiration for those listening to your message and the depth of your investment. There you go. Get a little pat on the back by Salty. Carl kicks back in, says, truth, even hard truths to grow and be accountable in healing and being better. For example, the talks on walks with Chance. Yeah, him and I went for a ruck the other day and we had quite a good chat. Salty Jinx says, to what Chance mentioned, I wouldn't say there's a gap in the middle. Oh, between the target versus where you're at. Yeah. It's a great point. And then Carl gets us back. He says, I was thinking more along the line.
Hang on a sec. For Salty Jinx, he's saying that maybe there isn't a gap in the middle. And for me, there isn't a gap in the middle because that's not how I think. But I think the point still stands as a fair point, and that is people who are standing on the start line only see the finish line and can't understand that gap in the middle of all that hard work and all of that nebulous gray zone that they're about to step into called the rest of the race until they get to the finish line. There's a lot of people that don't understand that gap in the middle. But if you've been in a lot of games, if you've been driving hard and forward long enough, then there is no gap. There is no middle. There is actually no start and finish line. There's just now. And so, but I mean, it takes a while to figure these things out.
Absolutely. And you got to stand on a lot of start lines. that's the other part. And it's actually interesting the way you put it there. When my wife was going to do her first half marathon, I was talking with her about it and I was like, oh yeah, it's usually like, I was remembering back to the maybe one time I've run more than 20 kilometers. Whew, get that out of my face. And I was telling her, oh yeah, I had little struggles at like 7K and like 16K where your body's just like, what are we even doing here? And you're like, yeah, keep running. And she was telling me, oh yeah, I hit similar markers kind of in those same ranges. And it was interesting that beforehand, when there's other times I'd look at another achievement or something that was far beyond what my capabilities were. Somebody say, "Oh, I'm going to do, an ultra marathon, 100K," and your first reaction is, "Oh, man, that's crazy." Why is that crazy? It's not crazy, actually. It just takes training and time and development, and then you can do it because lots of people do. So I just wanted to get.
No, I disagree. No,
You
lots of
disagree?
people don't do, but unless what we're agreeing about is lots of people do this. They talk about doing an ultra marathon.
Lots of people do talk about it, but
They
there are
talk
lots
about
of.
it,
Okay,
but they don't know where their running shoes are.
true.
Or maybe they find their running shoes and maybe they go for one run a week. I'm going to do an ultra marathon. Until the day they die, they might repeat that, but they never do an ultra marathon. So back to the point that we were talking about earlier, talk is cheap. Deeds,
Yes.
not words. You
Yeah.
say you're going to do it, go do it. But don't talk to me about how you're going to do it. Don't tell me for years and years and years about how you're going to do an ultra marathon. Go do it and then tell me that you did it. Now I'm interested.
Yeah, a picture on the starting line is meaningless, right?
Meaningless.
So
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Carl, going back to what he was saying, is I was thinking more along the lines of directing people in the right direction. Well, then that's not silent, is it?
That's actually, you're an active agent in the asset world. You're actually doing us a favor. You're on the team
you're a recruiter.
by verbalizing, come on over and join us. You're actually in a leadership position at that point, leading the way towards goodness, as it were.
Yeah,
100%. He says, I'm still healing and learning life, but I do want to help people somehow. Absolutely.
We
Well,
all
and-
do, buddy, and we all are.
yeah,
Mhm.
that's one of the things that people don't realize is that you can be in the healing process and begin to start helping people. And in fact, I think it probably speeds up the healing process because there's a massive amount of gratitude that you get from helping others. There's something, I think maybe one of the greatest things that a person can feel is when they reach their hand out and pull somebody up with them, when they have finally mastered something and then they start to share that skill or that wisdom with the world. I don't know, for me personally, there's not much greater than helping a person out. And when I got into social media, we've had this conversation before. So just in the chance that people haven't heard that one, when I got into this, and I know probably when you two gentlemen did, I told my wife right away, I just want to help one person. And if I help one person, all the rest is a bonus. And it's awesome, right? And I've been able to do the one person and, brought a couple of tears to my eyes. And then I was like, okay, now I can help other people. And it's all for free now. This is all just a bonus. I did the thing. I helped one person. Now I can help more. And so I just have been able to keep doing that. And I see that in you guys. And I see that in so many of the people that have folded into the collective.
It's very true. There's a little trick there, though. But Shaun, you got a thought?
No, I'm curious about your trick because I have a little trick in my mind as well.
So there is one little trick with that, is that it can become a proxy very quickly, and
That's the trick.
Yeah, it becomes you will seek to help other people without actually doing anything for yourself. You won't actually help yourself, and in fact, you'll give you'll give way too much of yourself into it, and you'll actually end up doing more damage than you could when you started. And I did that right off the bat. It was the same thing. The moment I thought I was good to go, I was like, yes, I got this. I'm going to go help other people.
The way.
Yeah. Woo, let's go. And I was not.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. It's cool that you had all the right intentions. You still have all the right intentions. Your intentions have never shifted. You just want to help. You want to be better. You want to do better for others. You're a righteous dude. It's all good. But the important distinction is that you got to know your place.
Yeah.
You got to know your level. You got to understand who you are in that moment. And if you're one day into the 1,000 day game, in day one, do not talk like you're at day 500. Do not try to lead like you're at day 800. Do not try to wave a flag and say, follow me, like you're at day 950. If you're at day one, know that's where you're at. You can still be helpful. You can still be in the game. You can be 100% in the game. But you got to understand how you can help. And if you are trying to figure out how you can help, just like Carl just did, how about silent partners? okay, if silent partners means redirecting people to good advice, bam, now you're helping people. There's an important distinction between redirecting to good advice and, instead of redirecting, telling someone to sit down, I'm going to give you the good advice. Someone can't spell good advice. Giving good advice isn't a great look. What it does is two things. Is the person that you're helping is being misdirected or misled or maybe more damaged because you yourself don't have the abilities to move them in a forward positive manner. And secondly, you're reinforcing the idea that you're so large and in charge that you've got a lot of things figured out and you can hand out your advice casually, like you're a PhD in psychology. And that's just not how life works. But it's interesting about veterans law enforcement, particularly, that because we've served so much or served so long, we just want to fix things. We want to help. We want to do things for others. We'd rather help the guy next to us than help ourselves. And it's whether it's a character flaw that all drew us to service, or whether service created the character flaw that sometimes we get blind to our sense of what we can deliver. It's just what we do. I've made a ton of mistakes in respect to this. I give advice all the time that I probably shouldn't give, but I'm just trying to be helpful. And the idea being that it's for us to figure out how far along we are on that continuum of helpfulness, whether we're on day one or day 1000. You've really got to figure out what you are in order to help others be more for themselves.
Yeah, I think there's a massive level of humility that you need to see in somebody if they're going to be an asset. I think that's a characteristic that drives somebody to be benevolent in the right way, is humility, because you can't give advice if it's bad advice, or you're going to potentially hurt somebody. So you might have to swallow your pride and say, hey, you've reached out to me. I don't have the answer, but I might have somebody that has an answer, or I can direct you in the right way, because there's nothing more poisonous than benevolent narcissism. And that is rampant on the internet. I mean, that's the influencer all day long, right?
All day long.
Look at me and how grand I am. I have all the answers. I'm infallible. And yet they don't have a resume to back it up. They don't have a CV full of life's experience. And there's a real danger in that. And it's too bad that that's the way the internet is, because it's hard to, see through the weeds, so to speak. But humility versus benevolent narcissism, I see that all the time. I see that that's a very dangerous thing. And people that are going to be inspirers need to have a giant bag of humility with them, because you can't fix everybody. You can't jeopardize yourself. You got to put your own tourniquet on first, right? I mean, they probably teach you that in the military. They always tell you to put your own air mask on in the airplane before you try to help other people. And we got to remember that you got to be able to be good with yourself before you're out there fixing the world, because you'll break down and you'll be no good to anybody. They always preach that in law enforcement, that the officer responding to the call has to make it to the call. You're no good to anybody if you end up in the ditch because you're doing a $180 to a non-emergent incident. And you're no good to your partners if you've injured yourself at a scene because you're being ignorant and stupid and not following protocol or not listening to yourself. So yeah, put your own mask on or your own tourniquet on first, and then go help, right? And I think that what that means is, don't be a narcissist, have some humility, and know that you might not have all the answers, but you can still help.
Yeah, and so if someone does want to help, I can think of a number of characters out there that I know reasonably well who are good guys and genuinely want to help, but they just don't know how to, so they kind of just get after it. And that get after it ism is sometimes taking them down a path that they're wholly, I was saying holy as in WHOLLY, wholly incapable of. Giving out advice that they need themselves, that they're not listening to their own advice, but they're casually handing out that advice to, well, bro, just go outside and stare at the sun. But man, you haven't been out of your house in a month while you're creating all of those sexy little videos to explain how awesome you are. And so the advice that's being handed out there by, as I see it, influencers, is dragging things off the off the rails. But it's our job to keep things on the rails. And those rails are positive forward momentum as a team, making a larger footprint to do more good in the world. And I don't mean like solve hunger in Africa. I mean like amongst veterans, law enforcement, and first responders within that small group of people. If we could help just that group, that would be enough for me. But as it turns out, there's now so many more people that are attracted to what we're doing over here, bringing good panel guests to bring wisdom on a variety of different subjects. As I said to Chance over the last few days, looking for a master list of all the topics that we've covered since Jan 1. He's now starting to create some rudimentary master lists of if you need to learn about this, go to that date. And so this comes out of, and I've been chirping a little bit about, I need some freaking master lists. But yesterday I got hit by two separate guys, one active RCMP, one an active military, and they were talking about, man, I'm just struggling a little bit with some imposter syndrome. And I just wanted to say, okay, well, go listen to this date, this date, this date, and this date, and that's imposter syndrome, check. And then if you got any further questions, hit back. But without that ability, I find myself spending my day answering repetitive questions about imposter syndrome. I mean, we freaking covered imposter syndrome just a couple of days ago with all the ladies. All those ladies, to some degree or another, talking about their own imposter syndromes and how they do this, this, and this. But if people want quick solutions, they just want a paragraph typed out. But I want to be able to redirect them to all the freaking mega wisdom that's being dropped over the last 6 months. So with master lists, we should be able to redirect people to some of these subjects. But that's now the past. I'm looking to the future, the next 6 months, and how we're going to not just take this body of knowledge and make it larger. There's knowledge there already. I want to make the footprint larger, not the knowledge larger. That's just going to happen now organically. We need more eyeballs on the knowledge.
Absolutely. There's I had this perfect image. This is also one of the things that I think, that we need to develop more. But an A team, when you actually put one out into the field, they have to be able to adapt to the environment around them, right? If you were to have an A team, we were talking about humility a little bit ago, but if you were to have an A team walk into an area down in Panchway or whatever and refuse to wear the dress, refuse to talk to people with respect, refuse, just wandered around like, no, this is now us. You're all going to do us. That's a lot of what I see on social media too, right?
Yeah,
it's just everybody walking around like, you guys are doing us now, versus adapting to the climate and then working with the locals to develop and build, which is what an A team actually does, right? And it doesn't, no matter where you send them, they just move in, they adapt to that area. Oh, okay, this is the pattern of life. Cool. And then they start working within that pattern of life to develop outwards. And I think that's what we're doing. That's what I've seen with all of the people that we've had on, are just trying to build their community around them consistently. And as long as they're building their community, each and every one of us continues to build our community, then we take over the country.
Yeah, but you made the point. A team skydives in, figures out the vibe, owns a country. That's cool. But that's because they're a tight little unit.
Yeah.
The moment that you start attaching other units to that unit, the other units that are attaching, and this is so critical, and this is what we cannot fold on, it's so important. Their culture has to be our culture. Their vibe has to be our vibe. If we jump in and start setting up the apparatus to control a sphere of operations, the vibe that we set is the right vibe. The vibe that we set has to continue with that same vibe. If someone wants to jump in and say, well, I was kind of thinking that we're going to do it completely different. Okay, good luck. Let us know how you make out.
Yeah.
I wish you all the best. But for now, we're going to keep on with this vibe, this synchronous moment, this ability to understand what is required now, and we'll improvise, adapt, and overcome as we move forward. But our culture is our culture. I don't want to contaminate our positive culture by introducing small teams that are not positive or are not forward thinking, etc.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed. You know, it's like if you're trying to teach people how to be better shepherds, you don't want a bunch of sheep showing up, right?
Yeah, and you also don't want a bunch of wolves showing up.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
So yeah, that's for some people, they don't like that truth. They don't like, well, how come you're not so inclusive? Well, we are inclusive. You can be included in here if you have the wherewithal to say, stop saying I can't. If you're going to move forward properly, and you're going to be kind, and you're going to be powerful, and you're going to stop having a victim mentality, and you have a positive, awesome message, cool.
You're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not inclusive.
That's
You
right.
are disincluding yourself by
Correct.
attempting to change the gravitational force of something.
Yeah.
You know, the moon goes around the earth. It's not the other way around. And so if somebody wants into a cultural system, they can't change the culture, right? They can be positively influential with their own wisdom that they bring, but they can't make a bunch of shepherds into sheep. That just isn't going to work, right? So 100% agree. There has to be a vetting process that is also a natural thing. Are you interested in being part of this group? Awesome. Here's the kind of people we are. Well, I think that we should be this. Cool. Go make your group. Yep. You go
Toast over there.
The best part about what we've got going on right now is we've been doing it for long enough that everyone understands, generally speaking, our forward trajectory. And if they're interested in it, they're asking to be part of it. We haven't had to say to anyone, do you know anything about us and how we're trying to do this, and turn them away. People who want to be in the game are people who've been tracking the game for long enough that they know the game that we expect them to play. And that's why there's little teams that are popping up that are stoked and positive minded, that are trying to not replicate what we're doing, but just they're excited to be helpful in this greater forward group called Let's Just Do It Freaking Better.
Yeah, it's not replication, it's amplification.
There you go.
Right?
I like
Somebody's
that.
coming in, they're very similar mindset. They're goal oriented, maybe not to the same goal. You know, not everybody wants to jump on a mountain bike and do 50 miles an hour up and down through jagged rocks, but they might have an awesome, their own awesome goal, right? Like, I love you say macrame. I don't even know what macrame is. Some kind of sewing, but
yeah, I'm not sure either.
Hey, I think that you can both agree that if you had a world champion macrame on your team, it wouldn't matter. Wouldn't matter if they were awesome and being awesome. Why not, right?
To get to those levels, you're awesome. Because
Yeah.
you've got to have a good mind. You've got to have a good discipline. You've got to have a good focus. You've got to have all the things that get people further down the path of being better people. Doesn't matter if you're a swordsman or a macrame man or a flower man or whatever. It doesn't freaking matter. If you're in the game of being better, then we're interested in you being better over here for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are just over an hour now, and I think we've hit quite a bit as to what it is not only we're doing, but what we're seeing out there, and what how to make this a better engagement for everybody. So I'm pretty stoked. This is a pretty well done conversation. Any final thoughts, Jason, on A-Team's assets?
Sure. I'm stealing this. It's not my original. I heard it the other day and it's really cool. The difference between successful people and unsuccessful people, or ordinary people and extraordinary people, is just the word extra. I think the A-Team the A-Teams will be a group of extraordinary people, and all they're doing is ordinary things all the time. And that's I think that's going to be one of the great assets of A-Teams, is that they're all going to be extraordinary people. They're just people that do ordinary every day. And then they become extraordinary because they're not doing it once every 2 months or once every week, right? They're not putting their running shoes on once every 2 weeks. They're doing it every day. So instead of being ordinary, they're extraordinary, which all just means volume, right? They're doing it more, and they are mastering life in a much more rapid way. And when I thought of that, it immediately reminded me of the collective, that there's a group of extraordinary people out there, and the only difference between them and everybody else is that they do it extra. And I just wanted to share that because I thought it was a pretty good way of describing extraordinary people or ordinary people who do everything extra.
There you go. Sean,
Yeah,
you hear that?
I
You're
like that.
extra. You're extra now.
Well, I do extra stuff, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
I do believe I'm pretty ordinary. I was ordinary at the start of my life, and I'm pretty ordinary now, but I can't believe I'm doing what I'm doing, and I can't believe the life that I've led because I just did extra,
Yeah.
to Jay's point. And it turns out to be this now. And this thing that we're doing, this podcasting, I do that extra. I ferociously try to do this better. Not for me, because if it was just for me, I'll see y'all later. Peace out. So it's for the team, and I think that's how I'd like to end this episode. Is just consider who you're doing it for. If you've got to do it for yourself because you're the person who's in the hurt locker so much that you just got to do it for you, then do it. But don't just do it once. Do extra. And if you are in a position where you're feeling like you've got a few things to say, you've got a few ideas, you think that you can be helpful, well, come and help us. But get used to extra. Get used to extra help. Because if you say to me, hey, Shaun, I'd love to help you, drop me a line next week. My response to you is, are you busy right now? I'm going to drop you a call right now.
Mm-hmm.
Expect a video chat in 15 seconds. And then I look at my watch and I start counting down. Because to the start of this conversation, the system that isn't serving as well is a system of bureaucracy and 9-to-5 ticket punchers. That is not helping the greater community around us on any time after 5 o'clock in the evening. And we're here 24/7 doing extra. So if you want to come out, hang out with us, expect a little bit of a increased velocity, but it's for the better.
One of the first thing you said to me when we started getting this started actually was, you better be able to better be able to hold on, something like that.
Yeah, strap in and hold on,
Strap
because
in
I'm
and
going to
hold on.
push a pace that you are not used to.
Yeah, and exactly. That's exactly it. And it's true. I've strapped in. I've held on with just my fingertips a couple times, but
bloody
still here.
fingernail tips, by the way, at some points.
I'm still here. That's the thing.
Yes,
Didn't
you
let
are, and
go.
it's beautiful.
That's the way. And this is what we get to do every day. We get to learn what we're capable of. We get to build upon that, and we get to grow into the people that we're meant to be. You can do that with us on the collective every day. See y'all tomorrow. Chimo.
Chimo.